Good morning, good afternoon, and if you're watching this late at night, good evening. I'm so glad you could join us today for our very fast review of World War I history. Now, this is the fast review video. I'm so glad you're here to watch it. However, this is going to be a little bit fast and we're going to miss a few of the details in this very quick video. Here we go. We're going to do this quickly because you don't want to be watching this all night long. And if we went slowly, this video would be 5 hours long. So instead of making this 5 hours long, we're going 10 times fast with the goal of making this video less than 30 minutes long. Let's see if we can make this under 30 minutes long for this fast review video. World War I, prequel, causes, events, and more. Here we go. Okay, there is a table of contents on this PowerPoint, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on the table of contents in this fast video. Just give you an idea that we're focusing on the lead up to World War I and a few of the events. We're going to do global impact and legacy, the aftermath of World War I as a separate video. Okay, here we go. Part 1, Introduction. Now, let's pause on this slide for a moment. I'm going to ask you two questions. What do you see and what do you wonder? What do you see in these images and what do you wonder? Meaning as in, what questions do you have about what you see? Pause the video now. Discuss. 3 minutes. Do 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 do. Start the video. And now, for why is this so incredibly important? Here we go. Significance. Okay, so World War I is an incredibly significant part of history. Very interesting, lots of sad, tragic stories, lots of interesting stories, lots of narratives. Okay, there's connections all over, and of course there's the clear, obvious connection to World War II. There's so many connections also, of course, to the pandemic called the Spanish flu. However, also, of course, the Great Depression. But in the fast version, we'll just have to summarize significance and say that there's so much of history and our lives for the last 100 years that is interconnected with this conflict. But I need to pause down and say there's so much about significance. Canada changed. That's a huge piece of significance for us as Canadians. Canada changed. How did Canada change? We'll get into that. The whole world changed. Superpowers changed. Superpowers meaning countries with a lot of power changed and continued to change. And many people shifted from valuing the glory of war to a deep, deep desire for lasting peace because of the impact of this war. Okay, in the fast version, I'll summarize that even the fact that you are attending an IB World School right now is interconnected with a domino effect. From World War I, creation of League of Nations, creation of the United Nations, to creation of International Baccalaureate. Another key piece of significance, a lasting key, is the impact on our stories, the stories of our culture, and how we engage and evaluate those stories. This is very, very important because we need the skills to evaluate and analyze how much truth and how much fiction are in the stories embedded in our novels, in our plays, in our movies, our cartoons, our comics, etc. Okay, here we go, aka pop culture. The numbers speak to why this is a significant event, but we should also point out that the Spanish flu, aka 1919 pandemic, was also an incredibly significant thing in terms of the numbers of lives of people affected. However, it doesn't get as much attention in the history books, in the stories, in the movies. Why is it sort of the forgotten part of history? It is very important. And of course, pandemics do also repeat themselves across history in the sense that there have been multiple pandemics, as you most likely are aware. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to slow down just a tiny bit on this particular slide. On this particular slide about the word ideology, because it's a very important word. Okay, let's go with a simple paraphrase definition. What you need to know about ideologies. Ideas that shape our decisions and actions. Now that's trying to be simple, a simplified definition. And the problem with that definition is it doesn't rule out all the words by comparison and contrast. But it's a simple way of thinking about ideas that shape our decisions and actions. Of course, it's much more complicated than that, and you can see from the screen, the slide, there are other more complex definitions. Another way of thinking about ideologies, a simple definition, an organized category of beliefs and ideas that guide decisions, preference, action, and restraint. Now, why are ideologies so important? Because they shape our choices, what we do and what we do not do as both individuals and societies. Now, for a little extra enrichment, we're going to slow down for a little complexity and extra enrichment. What is the difference and similarities in the definition flavor between the definitions of ideology, dogma, doctrine, belief, value, philosophy, epistemology, and theology? Whoa, a whole bunch of big words. Why is this so exciting? Because if we are reflective and thinking about our thinking beliefs and better understanding ourselves, our choices, if we reflect and think about our thinking, we become more empowered to make different choices, which is a valuable skill for everyone. So what was that word I was just saying? The bonus enrichment word of the day, epistemology. The simplified definition of epistemology is 1, the study of knowledge and knowing, 2, thinking about thinking, and 3, thinking about how we come to know what we know. Now those are all simplified definitions, the simple version. All right, should I repeat that? Instead of repeating that, if you want to hear that again, rewind the video and take another look at that. We're going to move on for the sake of time. This is important because if we study this area of epistemology, study the area of knowledge and thinking about thinking, this field can help us become better learners and, of course, for myself, a better teacher. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, some big ideas. We're just going to skip the first 3 for the sake of time. Okay, the last one I want to read to you. Collective identity is constructed and can change over time. There's a big idea from the curriculum of British Columbia for grade 9. Here we go on to World War I, global interactions and Canada. How did global interactions of World War I change the national and global view of Canadian identity? Other important inquiry questions. What were the causes of World War I, including ideas and forces pushing for war and the escalation of the war to become a world war? How can I evaluate which causes are the most important? Okay, when you're thinking of causes, there's different levels. There's causes of the war, or causes of the conflict, and there's causes of the conflict becoming escalated to the point of being a global world war. 2 different things to think about, but both important. Other important thoughts. Was World War I necessary? Was it necessary for the world, from a worldview? From the point of view of, say, Russia, was it necessary? From the point of view of, say, Europe or Britain or Canada, was it necessary? Did Britain need to join this war? There's arguments on both sides. Okay, here we go. Another important question that can be debated. Were the victors of World War I justified to add a war guilt clause to the Treaty of Versailles, forcing the blame on Germany? Why or why not? Debate. Okay, another important question. How can peace be sustained and another world war avoided for the future? Incredibly important. This has an impact, of course, on us today. Okay, we're going to skip most of this for the fast version with a few highlights. Franco-Prussian War. A key takeaway from this is that Germany and France had a war with each other. Germany won, and they were kind of not friends because of this. Especially France was mad at Germany and wanted some of their land back, which they lost in this war. Okay, Berlin Conference. What's the significance of this? This event is important if you want to make an argument that colonialism was a significant cause of World War I. This event gives evidence to the attitudes of the European powers, in particular, as the image suggests. Germany wants a piece of Africa. They want to have colonies as well, just like the other European powers. We're going to skip this slide for the fast version. Okay, the Moroccan crisis. Super fast. This event is important if you want to make an argument that colonialism and militarism were a significant cause of World War I. This event gives evidence to the attitudes of Germany. We have a warship and we're willing to use it if necessary. And then diplomacy, aka gunship diplomacy. We're not going to spend a lot of time on defining gunship diplomacy in the fast version. If you're interested, Google gunship diplomacy. Okay, fast version. There are 6 figures in this cartoon. Are you able to name them all? Take a moment to pause the video and test yourself to see if you can name these 6 countries. Do. Okay, restart the video. Can you identify some countries that are missing? Pause the video for a few seconds to think. Do. Okay, some missing countries that are not included here. Canada is not here. United States is not here. Italy is not here. The Ottoman Empire is not here. Think about the countries that are included. Why are they included and why are some not included? Now that you know which ones are not included, that may help you figure out the remainder. If you need a hint, the little figure over here, the smallest one, represents a smaller country, Serbia, and over at the other end is Britain, also known as United Kingdom, also known as England. Alrighty, here we go. Here on the map, this particular map, it's labeled Great Britain. And notice in this particular time period going into World War I, you can see that Ireland is part of the British Empire. And the British Empire, of course, changes over time what's included and what's not included. All right, the Central Powers and Allied Powers. A quick note on this map is different maps from different periods will refer to things like the Triple Entente or the Triple Alliance. And note that Italy was a part of the Triple Alliance going into the time period just before World War I, where it was allied with the German Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was not required to come and join a conflict unless it was a defensive conflict and opted to stay out and then joined on the outside of the Allied powers. So note that there's different terminology which can be confusing. The Triple Alliance is not the same thing as the Allied powers. The Triple Alliance would include Germany, where the Allied powers does not include Germany, just to be aware of that confusion. Okay. We're going to skip the topic of weapons and tanks on the fast version. However, if you're interested, Google tanks of World War I and Google weapons of World War I. In particular, gas weapons are a big issue in World War I. Note this is an image of a World War I tank, which is very different in design and look and use to World War II. Here we go, moving on. Ideas! This is critically important to everyone, all of us, because they shape our choices, our actions, and what we do, no matter where you end up in life. This is a very important life skill, a skill to be able to use, to think about ideas. Notice the belief wheel, where we have beliefs at the top, going on to a spin to judgments, and then to actions or non-actions, and then results, which then can influence belief, keeping beliefs, or changing beliefs. Now, of course, we can also add scientific methodology to the belief wheel and look at statistics and experiments. One interesting anecdote is teachers are more likely to change their action if they see science and statistical analysis supporting evidence that there is value in a certain course of action. All right, next, there are some example ideologies up here. Now, they're not necessarily all the ones we're focusing on right now. So the ones we're focusing on right now are coming up on this slide here. We're going to be focusing on thinking about the word militarism, alliances, imperialism. We've already talked about colonialism a little bit, and patriotism and nationalism. Okay, let's slow down a little bit and talk about these hugely important words, and notice the acronym to help you remember them. MAIN, M-A-I-N, short for the main forces or the main causes that push the world toward World War I. Now, note with the acronym MAIN, some of the things that are left off are colonialism, patriotism, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But these are considered the main causes or main forces, but not the only forces. And it's really just an acronym to help you remember these 4 words. Okay, here we go. The fun of these exciting topics. Okay, so why is this so important? Because this belief could affect our choices and who we vote for and what we choose to do with our lives. All right. Militarism, the belief that countries should maintain a strong military capability and be prepared to use it and possibly use it aggressively. Okay. For the sake of time, we're going to go through these very quickly. Alliance, the fast version, a formal agreement or pact. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's the fast version. Alliances, a formal agreement or pact. Now, a quick connection note from the past to the present. Canada is involved in an alliance called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. If you are unaware of that, you may want to Google NATO or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to see the connection, the continuity between the past and the present. Alliances have also the function of not just to function during war, but also as a role to hypothetically, if done well, prevent war, to create peace in theory as a deterrent. Okay. Imperialism. A policy of extending a country's political and economic power and influence. How? Through many, many means, but military force could be one of those means, but there could be other means to extend power. And power could be over land, ideas, culture, choices, and resources. Okay, a simplified definition of imperialism is a belief that it is good for a country to conquer and or control land and or resources of other people in order to build a great empire. Notice there is a connection between empire and imperialism. And the celebration of empire is associated with imperialism. Another analogy for understanding the word imperialism is, for people who are Star Wars fans, is that Darth Vader is a part of the Empire, and the idea is that the Empire wants to control planets, control people on those planets. Okay. And of course, extract the resources from those planets. Nationalism is the most confusing word on this list of 4 words because it has many flavors, many possible definitions, and is used in writing in many ways and has been used by various people to try and imply certain meanings. Okay, let's talk about nationalism. Nationalism, one, is also compared to patriotism, so you could also Google patriotism to see an alternate similar word, but slightly different in flavor, but similar. Sometimes also used as a synonym, but has a slightly different flavor. Okay, nationalism could be defined as a belief or creed or political ideology that involves an individual identifying or becoming attached to one's nation or national identity. However, it is a very complex word. Nationalism comes from the word nation. The word nationalism is often used in writing to discuss the desire of a people to create a new nation by separation from a larger country. At least in World War I, that's the main use of this particular word. It's also used as sometimes as a desire of people to return to an existing nation state or to return a nation to a former glory by making the nation stronger or better. Okay, let's continue to talk about nationalism. Sometimes this word is used and perceived negatively. However, when we're talking about World War I, we're talking about people usually without much power who are part of a colonial empire or another empire who want to be free from that empire to obtain independence from the empire. And so there's this growing sense of a desire for people groups to be free from empire, be controlled by a colonial empire or another type of empire. And so nationalism in this context has a different flavor than it may be used by certain people in a modern context when you're looking at it in the historical context. All right, what else do we need to know about nationalism? Sometimes this word is used negatively. Therefore, as Canadians, you need to be aware that sometimes in writing, in news articles, you'll hear the word Canadian identity, and Canadian identity may be used by, say, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau or other politicians. And it might be a polite way of discussing Canadian nationalism while trying to be extra polite, because as Canadians, we like to be as polite and least offensive as possible, and to separate ourselves from our brothers and sisters in the United States of America, where nationalism and patriotism are used in a very patriotic way in the United States of America. And by a few people, they may also infuse a little bit of the flavor of racism into the word nationalism, which does add a confusion to this word of nationalism. Why would they do that? Perhaps they want to also hide the word racism when they're discussing it, and therefore they may use the word nationalism to hide racism. It doesn't mean that necessarily everyone who believes in nationalism, though, is racist, which can also be confusing. Some nationalists may just want to create a country. Some nationalists may want to create their country and make it better. And some nationalists may want to prevent the decline of their country. So it depends on the context of how the word nationalism is used. But it's a very important word to understand. And in some context, words like nationalism and patriotism, they are the glue that keeps a country together and stops the country from dividing and separating from itself. With that said, in Canada, we may use instead Canadian identity and Canadian values as our glue that keeps Canada together. Okay. Colonialism, a simplified definition of colonialism. Now, colonialism often involves settlers and colonies overseas, but what we're going to think about is a simplified concept of why colonialism could be argued to be a cause of World War I, or a force that would drive the countries towards choosing war. And so why would the European countries choose war? One, colonies were a prize from war. So they may be motivated because they want to get more colonies. That's a reason why they may choose war. Another effect or connection to colonies is that the concept of colonization in colonies escalated the war from a local conflict in Europe to a global world conflict. When Great Britain joined the war, they also brought in all their colonies into World War I, including, of course, Canada. But not just Canada. As you can see from this map, there's Canada. There's colonies in Africa, from South Africa to Egypt. And there's India, including parts of Pakistan and Bangladesh, Australia, New Zealand, and more. Also, back to the island of Great Britain, the Isles, there's also the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh. Okay, let's go on and take a look at the next slide. We're going to go really fast through leadership on the fast version. We'll mention there's Wilfrid Laurier here and Robert Borden here in the fast version. Okay, key thing to take away from Laurier, he was a prime minister in the time period leading up to World War I, and he said a key quote. And the key quote he said is, "When Britain is at war, Canada is at war, there is no distinction." This is interesting. So, in 1914, Canada was a self-governing dominion of the British Empire, but it did not control its own foreign affairs. As during the South African War, the Canadian government would decide the nature and extent of Canada's war effort, but legally, the country was at war the instant Britain declared a war. But that did change over time in the 20th century. A slow progression, and forces changed it. World War I helped change it, and also people and leadership. So Borden was one of the key players in that process, and because of his leadership in that area, he is embedded in our currency to remember his contribution to Canadian autonomy and Canadian identity, and the word Canadian nationalism, which may or may not be the best word. Canadian autonomy, Canadian identity, probably more often you'll find Canadian autonomy in the writings about his achievements. All right, there is a link here to follow if you want to read an article about his achievements in this area. For the sake of time, we're moving on to the crisis, the assassination. We're going to go through this fairly quickly on the fast version because I'm already over time on this video, doing it longer than we want. Okay, so the crisis. Is this event the cause of World War I, or just the match that started the fire? A fire in a forest full of other causes and forces. How can we evaluate which causes are most significant in order to prevent future wars? The story is explained very well in the video done by Extra Credits. If you Google on YouTube, Extra credits, World War I. Part 2 in particular has this story. You can find a very rich and detailed story there. For the sake of time, we are going to be moving on. Okay, what are the actions that other countries could have done to de-escalate the crisis? In the fast version, we're going to have to skip this thought. All right, Canada, Canadian connections. We want to talk a little bit about Francis Pegum of all. We do not want to skip this hero from Canadian history. Why? He is famous for many things, including being a very effective sniper, winning many awards, and advocating for First Nation Indigenous rights and self-determination, and also showing leadership in that area for his people and courage on the front in the face of danger and creativity. Okay, and creativity in how he did his role as a sniper. Okay, let's move on to Canada in general. Okay, so in the fast version, we're going to go really fast through this. To get the details of Canada and the Canadian role in World War I, we have, of course, the textbook as a resource, but also, if you love videos, Indy Nidell has made a very well-done video about Canada in World War I, which you can access on YouTube. Google Canada in World War I, and if you need to add, you can add Indy Nidell to see make it pop up, or World War I week by week. Canadian conscription crisis. We're going to slow down a little bit here. Anti-conscription riots broke out in Quebec. In 1918, the government used the War Measures Act to quell the anti-conscription Easter riots in Quebec City between 28th March and the 1st of April 1918, proclaiming martial law and deploying 6,000 soldiers. Rioters attacked the troops with gunfire and with improvised missiles, including ice bricks. Note, 4 civilians were killed when soldiers returned fire on armed rioters. This is critical. What's the significance of this? This had a huge impact on French-Canadian and English-Canadian relationships, creating a problem, a divide in the relationship between French and English Canada, which had a ripple effect on the rest of Canadian history in the 20th century. So many connections to this point, even in the world of hockey. Google Maurice Richard. Moving on. Part 7, review, summary, the causes. Oh, I should just go back a second to the idea of all the connections in Canadian history to the conscription crisis. Google the FLQ for extra enrichment. Google Quebec separation. And Google Montreal riots on Maurice Richard. There's so many interesting connection points. Google official bilingualism in Canada. All right, moving on. Part 7, review, summary, the causes. Evaluate. Which do you think are the most important and the most significant? Okay, so if you're watching this video just for fun, this is the end of all the beautiful images, and we're going to get to a little bit of a quick text-based kind of review type quiz. This would be a good place to pause the video and take a break, get a snack if you want to go on and see the next bit. It's kind of like a denouement or a conclusion or a quiz. Here we go, here we go. All right, let's take a look at brainstorm as many causes of World War I as you can remember. Ideological causes, ideas. Let's see what you can remember. How was militarism a cause of World War I? Many countries and people thought that it was a good idea to go to war. They believed that war was glorious. How was colonialism a cause of World War I? Germany, Britain, and other European powers were competing to own colonies overseas. This created tension among the European powers and later increased the scale of World War I as the colonies joined the war. Okay, the next question coming up, I'm going to ask it before I go on to the answer. How was imperialism a cause of World War I? Now, if you want to test yourself, write a sentence about that question. How was imperialism a cause of World War I? Do. Pause the video, restart the video. Here we go, on to the answer, or one possible correct answer out of many possible correct answers. Many countries and people thought that it was a good idea to go to war and take over other people's land. Now this is, of course, a simplified answer to show you how what a simplified correct answer might look like. It could be more complex than that. However, there's a correct simplified answer. Okay, next question coming up. How was nationalism a cause of World War I? Take a minute to answer that question. Write down your answer. Pause the video. Okay, how was nationalism a cause of World War I? Serbia wanted to have power over its own country, while Austria was worried that various people groups inside its empire would also want to separate from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So there was a rising sense of nationalism, in particular among the people of Serbia, who wanted their own country, and the assassination took place in a place called Bosnia, in a city called Sarajevo, where there were Serbian people. Okay, next question. Get ready to write down your answer. How was the alliance system a cause of World War I and a cause of the escalation of World War I to become a global world conflict? Pause the video, write down an answer, restart the video. Here we go. The alliance system led to a domino effect of more countries becoming involved. Now, you could get into a lot more detail and complexity than that, but that is the simple and shortest answer I can think of. Okay, here we go. More questions coming up. What events can you remember from the start of the war in the summer of 1914? Can you describe the assassination event? Can you describe the blank check? What is the blank check? What does that refer to? What do historians mean by the blank check? And the blank check event was July 5th and 6th, 1914. Which two countries were involved? And another question. Explain why Germany invaded Luxembourg and Belgium. What plan, strategy, and event was that all about? Okay, here we go. On to the answers. Assassination event. Archduke Franz Ferdinand went to Sarajevo, Bosnia with his wife, which was a bad idea because of local unrest. There he was assassinated by a Serbian, which angered Austria. Blank check. What's that? Germany said they would go to war with Austria without stating some limits to the promise. Why did Germany invade Luxembourg and Belgium? On August 2nd, 1914, German troops invade Luxembourg and Belgium as part of the deployment of the Schlieffen Plan. Germany issues an ultimatum to Belgium. Germany invaded these countries as a surprise attack to attack France, to make a shortcut. How is this Schlieffen Plan a cause of the escalation of the war to a global war? Well, the Schlieffen Plan had a problem that it required Germany to attack France first, win, and then go fight with Russia. Didn't really work out that way in this particular war, World War I. And it put pressure on Germany to get the war started with France quickly before Russia mobilized. The problem? Russia started mobilizing early. Uh-oh, problem. Okay, question. Why did Canada and Britain join World War I? Take a moment, write down an answer. First of all, Canada. Second, Britain. Why did they join World War I? With Britain, there's multiple reasons that are correct. Some are more debatable about which reason is more correct. Well, let's take a look. If you need more time, pause the video. Otherwise, we're going on to the answer. Canada joined because Canada was a dominion in the British Empire. We've already talked about they did not have a choice at the time. According to the law, they were at a state of war. But they did have a choice to how much support. Okay. Britain joined in part to defend the country of Belgium, which had been attacked by Germany. And there's a lot of discussion about why is that the key reason. Perhaps it's, as a democracy, a good reason to explain to the citizens. But they also did not want Germany to win against France because it might destabilize their colony, their treaties, and trade, their colonial treaties and trade. If Germany won the war, Germany might have gained colonies from France in a treaty process, which would have increased the naval competition between Germany and Britain. And possibly some historians might argue that would lead to a later conflict if Britain had stayed out of the war, hypothetically. Okay, next question. Why did the United States join World War I? Okay, so there's 4 possible answers on the next slide. And of course, some of them are debatable and some you'll find as more common. But there's 4 possible answers to why did the United States join World War I. See if you can think of 2 reasons why the United States joined World War I. Give it a shot. Write it down. Pause the video. Do 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 do. Okay, here we go. And now bear in mind these are debatable. Okay. The United States joined because of the sinking of ships in the Atlantic by German U-boats. Number 2, the desire to have a voice at the treaty process to influence the post-war world. Number 3, the loans lent to Britain from American bankers might not be repaid if Britain lost the war. And number 4, the desire to make the world safe for democracy. This is what Woodrow Wilson told Congress. But it could be debatable if that quote was the main reason. What do you think? Do you think the number 1 reason the United States went to war to join World War I was to make the world safe for democracy? What is your opinion? What evidence can you give to that? Pause. Discuss with your neighbor. Do 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 do. Possible causes, connections. What connections can you see in current events today? What is similar? What has changed? Pause and discuss for 3 to 6 minutes. Pause the video here. Google a current events article that has a connection to World War I. Alrighty, we get to the end. Whew. Okay, here we are, coming to the end. Part 9, Global Impact and Legacy, Consequences, all the aftermath of World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. Whew. We're going to have to save that for a whole nother video. We're coming to the end. Outtakes. Time for outtakes. Woohoo! Okay, here we go for outtakes. Delete this scene. Delete this scene. Delete this scene. Okay, so this is the end. If you want to stop the video now, you may as well. Although there might be something coming in a minute. Or I might just drink a cup of coffee. All right, I think I better wrap this up because I gotta leave the building before the custodians want to clean this room. What else do we need to know? If you would like an alternative point of view, a controversial point of view, a debatable point of view, which, well, let's just say not everybody may agree with this point of view, we'll show you an alternative look at history coming up on the next slide. Okay, what is this alternate point of view? Alternative Views, The Untold History of the United States by Oliver Stone and Kuznick. All right. This is the end. The end. All right, I'm going to have to continue to work on this PowerPoint and then upload it so you can download it as a resource, which will be done, of course, by the time you're watching this video. Have a good night. Peace. Oh. An example of Canadian nationalism, or a type of nationalism within Canada, is that flag that you see in the background in the distance. That is the flag of the province of Quebec. The province of Quebec has had two, different times, a referendum on the question of, in summary, leaving Canada or changing their relationship with Canada. The end.